Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, as always, I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So my guest today has been a professional tracker, a wilderness guide for newly sober people, and a vision quest leader. After a spiritual soul awakening, he participated in the high global Source School of Tantra Yoga, School of Temple Arts, a love coach academy, and Tony Robbins programs. He's also a certified NLP practitioner. As a love and relationship coach since 2012, he assists people from all over the world to increase their soulfulness, clarity, and ease with which they experience life. He does this by utilizing body-centered awareness, accessing one's inner wisdom, applying better communication skills, and asking really good questions. His new book, Soul Statements, a love coach guide to successful communication, is a guide for accessing inner wisdom to increase the clarity and ease with which a person shows up for life. So a very, very, very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Corey Folsom. How are you, Corey?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
So we had a little natter before we hit the record button, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with you. I kind of alluded to that in the intro. I love the melting pot of different things that's in your bio, like a tracker, a wilderness guide. You've done the Tantra Yoga School. You've NLP, Tony Robbins programs. It feels to me that you've been on a journey of amazing inner work.
Indeed so.
So I guess what I was keen to get into, just so for everybody listening, the title of this particular episode is called Dreams Live or Die by Our Daily Ritual. So I'm fascinated by that because daily rituals and being able to really find alignment for me is something that I tend to struggle with at times. So that's something that I'm keen to delve into and see how that can be improved. But I guess initially what I was keen to do was to find out a little bit about Corey, your background. I know your ancestors' background, but I'd probably like to know a little bit more about you. So it'd be lovely to to capture who you are and how you arrived where we are today.
Certainly. Thanks, Paul. So I wasn't always a love and relationship coach. In fact, as a young man, I didn't speak up for my needs. I shrank from my exuberance and certainty. And if my high school yearbook had a category for this person will probably never even talk to a girl, that I would have been the guy. And so my early intimate relationships, romances, if you were really defined by poor patterns of communication, just less than optimal behaviors and knowledge of how to just really be me and to communicate my values and my needs and be in partnership. And so at some point I had a couple divorces, 2 or 3 actually, and I had to decide that my past wasn't going to continue as my future, and that whatever conditions and circumstances I was experiencing now, that I was made for something better. I was made to be better. And so, as you mentioned, I participated in a whole lot of personal development courses, trainings. I hired a love coach to help me get to where I wanted to be. And what really made the difference was when I became willing to tell the truth to myself, my life improved. and that allowed me to stop practicing what wasn't me, the person that wasn't really me. And that's when everything really changed. I discovered that my power is connected to my fearlessness. And I cultivated what I call a courage to be clear. So speaking up in the moment when maybe something feels awkward, I heard a tone that I don't understand in someone else's voice, and I just want to be clear about what's happening, and I want to be clear with whatever my needs are, and to be able to communicate those with some measure of grace became the work. And so with all that, I went from needing desperately to work on myself to coaching people from all over the world.
Sounds like a phenomenal journey. I'm just writing that down now. What springs to mind to me is that when something maybe isn't working, we have that compound effect of doing the same thing over and over again. I'm sure everybody listening can think about something in their lives where maybe it doesn't feel quite right, but I'm just in that rhythm of doing it and doing it. I've been doing it for 15, 10, 20 years. But what's interesting about you recognize that, and you decided, actually, now I'm going to do something about it. And the reason I reference that is because the more prolonged it is, sometimes the more difficult it can be to kind of put that flag in the ground and actually decide that I'm going to do something, because invariably it feels uncomfortable to confront something that sticks out like a sore thumb. So what was that? How did you engage moving forward and tackling the situation?
Sure. Well, I had examples of people that I admired that modeled this for me, and I was like, oh, that's how I want to be. And so when we bring up something that maybe isn't anything, but maybe it feels there's some strangeness, or something struck me the wrong way or rubbed me the wrong way, if I can just say, hey, in the interest of supporting our friendship, or in the interest of being a better partner, I just want to speak to what I'm hearing right now. And so that way, there isn't this big emotional charge that's gotten to build up over time to where now it's a big freaking deal if I bring it up. Yeah. I'd rather just address something closer to the time when I actually first get that inkling of, I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe it's a little awkward. Why don't I just speak to it? And just, hey, not a big deal, but I just want to clear the air, make sure we're all good. And I heard a tone, I'm not sure that's how you meant to say it. Just wanting to check that out and just hear from the other person what's going on. So those are the kind of ways that I would start to address something.
I love those. So as you're talking, I'm learning. I'm thinking, actually, I can use that. Everybody listening to that should be using that, because you've got a lovely manner and phrase and tonality, the way that you're able to bring that question to whoever you're talking to into the equation when there's that little bit of potential angst that could happen.
That's right. And I love the concept of leading with something that's good and obviously true. So, hey, I want to be a better partner, and so I don't want to hold on to anything, or I don't want a misunderstanding. So would you maybe expand on what you meant by that? Or so you're just saying, hey, I want a good, solid friendship. I want to be a better interaction with you. And so you kind of frame it from that point. So, it becomes less threatening that way.
Yeah. As you were talking a second ago, I was thinking about relationships when they can become challenged, and particularly when we have maybe a pattern that we've seen in our relationships where things just haven't gone the way that we wanted them to go to. And I think about blame, because sometimes we can easily blame people for things that aren't going according to plan. And did that ever enter the frame for you? And if so, how did you remove blame if it did exist at all?
You're talking about blame specifically?
Yeah. So sometimes, people, we can have relationships at work, relationships with partners, and sometimes it's easier to blame other people than maybe just do what you did, which was decide, actually, even if there's always two sides to a situation, but you decided, actually, I'm going to do some self-work for me, where some people can decide that, forget the self-work, it's their fault, not mine. If that makes sense.
Yes. And so one thing that happened is I would hear the same exact complaint worded the same way about me from my beloved. And it was the same complaint spoken in the same way that I heard in my last relationship and the one before that. And oh, wow, there's a common denominator here, and it's me. There's a part of this problem that's mine. And that's when we need that self honesty, that willingness to say, oh, there's a part here and it's me. And that's what I need to spend some time thinking about and figure out how to get right on the inside, so I'm not having something come out sideways in a way that I don't intend.
Yeah, that's interesting that you had that clarity to kind of really kind of pinpoint it and then decide, I'm going to do something about it. And did it feel, possibly a silly question, I'm imagining when something's been going on for a period of time, to actually confront the situation and move forward, particularly when we know that there's some work to be done from ourselves. Did it feel uncomfortable?
Absolutely felt uncomfortable. And that was one of the beauties of having a coach, because I wasn't going to be in a romantic relationship with him. And so he had that ability to confront me and say the hard stuff I needed to hear. And he was able to, model for me how to do things. But it was someone I could bounce stuff off of and get just the real honest feedback that was need to know information about how I was showing up in the world.
Okay. And were you surprised at points in the journey when you would have moments of clarity and you could see, actually, I can see how that must have come across, or maybe I can see maybe things that I was trying to do were just coming out totally the wrong way?
Oh, 100%. And it also helped to realize that this other person that's chosen to spend time with me, that they had a different history, a different body, a different family, a different challenges. And so they are responding to what's they've experienced. And it's completely understandable and natural that they would be triggered by one thing or another and respond how they did. And so just to realize that we're all kind of imperfect angels, and we're doing the best we can, and we can help and support each other to step into a more empowered aspect.
And I'm thinking about people potentially listening to this and think, actually, I recognize some of the traits in my relationships, and they might be in a relationship now, and they might think, I need to do some of this work. It sticks out to me like a sore thumb. So if they do the work, is it just them that need to do the work, or should they consider speaking to their partner and saying, I'm going to do this work because I definitely need to do it? I've listened to the podcast with Corey, and I recognize a lot of what his journey and what he's been through, and I can see his evolution, and it's really what I would like to do. So I'm thinking about, to kind of really delve deep and see the results that you have. Does your partner need to engage the process as well?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
it's certainly a wonderful thing to share with your partner. Hey, I'm committed to working on myself. I want to be a better person and a better partner. And, in the interest of that, I am going to be trying some new tools, and I'm using these resources to educate myself. And it's fine to say, please, if you would allow me to be messy and imperfect as I try different behaviors, and I'm committed to my own process, and I'm just asking for a little patience and grace as I get better, and I will be getting better. Just that's the deal. Okay. So, yeah.
You just said a word that I've been thinking about for a second, patience. So did you have to be patient with yourself going through this process?
Yes. And so sometimes I would come across something and I'd be like, got it. That's me. I've always been that, and I understand. And whereas other times it felt like I was trying to turn around an aircraft carrier. You need like 50 miles of ocean to get it going the other direction. So yeah, it was, some things were quick and some things not so much. And the thing is too, if we think our partner is the problem, they're not.
Really?
Yeah. It comes back to, projection, and it's really, I spent a lot of time working with horses, and the horses are a beautiful mirror. I mean, the horse is just a horse. They respond to pressure, lack of pressure, comfort, lack of comfort. And if the horse is behaving poorly, it's because it's how they've been trained and what they're responding to whoever's working with them. And so if my horse isn't doing what I want him to do, it's time for me to act differently and communicate differently to the horse.
Yeah, that's interesting, because invariably I don't know whether it's habit, I don't know whether it's ego, I don't know whether it's just that continuation of a pattern. Invariably, I think sometimes we try and lay disagreements or our behavior when it's not what we'd like it to be at somebody else's door. But it's interesting that actually we should be looking from within.
Right. And if my partner doesn't trust me, that's not their fault. I can look at, where can I be more trustable? How can I build consistency and integrity to where it's obvious to just trust me?
So we talked about patience. So patience clearly is at play here. But for people that are thinking about, actually, I want to engage this process, is there kind of like a timeline that you can look at? Or does it really, you shouldn't put a timeline on it? You just, once you engage the process, you engage the process, and it takes however long it needs to take.
That's right. It's really unique, so unique to each person. And it's ideally just a commitment that doesn't have an end. You're not necessarily setting goalposts.
Yeah.
You can have stepping stones and markers along the way to let you know if you're on the right track, but it's just a commitment and a decision to just be better. And the more I find the real me, the more I want the real me.
Yeah. So do you ever compare like your old you, the old Corey, to the current Corey? Are there still similarities? Do they feel like strangers? How does it feel?
I'm not so kind of backward in time looking, and if I view old photographs of me, I'm like, wow, I thought I was a pretty great person. I definitely was a good person, and it's a little shocking to realize how few skills I had in terms of being, present, and in having, I had internal integrity, but I didn't have that expression to just be transparent. I didn't have the transparency of, this is who I am, this is what I'm up for, this is what I'm not up for, and I'm just living right here in the present. I didn't really have that.
Okay. So when I read out your bio, I referenced after a spiritual soul awakening. So was that what we're talking about now? The awakening that you had going through the process?
Yeah, we've been certainly talking about it, around it. And it was after my third divorce when I was a bit adrift, and someone suggested to me I might be interested in this Tantra weekend course that was happening. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. But what I discovered was this incredible joy and fulfillment of just being present for the moment, for my life, for just slowing down and feeling that the texture of life itself. And my cells just lit up, and it was like I was breathing joy. I was so happy, and I found me, and I felt changed on the molecular level. Like, oh, I found the real Corey. I want to figure out how to keep him.
Wow. So what you did over that weekend, it really was impactful. What was that meditation? What types of techniques were they using?
Sure. There was techniques like as just sitting knee to knee with another person and just looking in their eyes. So eye gazing.
Yeah.
And just and my partner would reach up and just take a finger and just tap me lightly on my sternum every time she felt my mind drifting away, which was fairly often. But that was a beautiful non-confrontational way of just saying, come back.
Yeah.
Be here with me. Be right here with me. And so just being able to have that gentle reminder of just coming back to present time.
Yeah.
And just being able to drop into that pure stillness of body, stillness of mind, but having that focal point of this other person's eyes. And it felt like the flame of love in her heart just, it's like that candle that reached out and touched the candle of my heart and lit it.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So conversely, when we're not in that, when we don't give ourselves that time, that grace, we're not centered. Are we a little bit, I don't know, unfocused, a little bit chaotic? What was the difference in terms of outwardly what was going on before then?
Before then, I was more focused on circumstance,
Okay.
on life is happening to me,
Okay.
versus being revolving around my own axis.
Okay. Sounds fantastic. Clearly, this has been massively impactful, transformative, to the point that you're actually supporting clients globally. We're going to get into your book in a second. So clearly it was that powerful that you were like, there's something more going on here that I need to really explore. So if you can maybe expand on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about, you mentioned about rituals. And so when I found me, the real Corey, and I wanted to keep him, and that was right at the moment I was starting to work with my coach, then he was helping me incorporate daily rituals, things to support my newfound presence and power. And so one of the things I learned that are our routines, the things we do every day, are rituals.
Yeah.
And so the way we wake up and what do we do now, we have certain rituals. And so to bring awareness to these things, to these everyday routines, and to keep the ones that align me with my self-image. Oh, people like me do this thing. we work out every day, or we brush our teeth every day, or whatever it is. And so, and I learned the importance of keeping small promises to myself.
Yeah.
If I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And so that, backing up, that means that I don't always say I'm going to do something unless it's really aligned with my values. So those kind of things. And one of the messages I can give my brain is, I'm doing this ritual as an act of love. Self-care is soul care.
Okay, love that. So to the point of daily rituals, which I'm not amazing at, I must say. So is it a conversation you have in your head? Do you write it down? Or over a period of time, does it become pretty organic?
A little of both. I actually have a chart, and I have things that I've told myself I'm going to do every day.
Yeah.
And then I make an X if I did them, or it's blank if I didn't. And then at the end of the month, I say, I did 302 out of the possible 370, check marks or something like that. And I just compare month to month. I have an accountability partner we trade these with. And so there's a bit of record keeping that way that helps keep me on track. But after a while, these practices are so supportive that I'm not depending on that list to do them. I'm just recording. And if I apply a practice here and a practice there, at some point it just becomes who I am, and I'm no longer practicing. It's just me.
And are within your, I guess, to-do list, are there things that are pretty core that will always be there, and then there might be a couple of things that are sprinkled into the mix?
That's right. So in other words, getting up and going by a certain time in the morning, getting outside early, getting some sunlight, my time in just quiet contemplation in front of my home altar. Those are foundational. And then other things like putting effort toward projects that I have going on, or I'm just trying to think of another one. Taking a steam shower, or that kind of stuff. Those are a little more tangential, but still. Another thing would be, gratitudes, to have a gratitude practice, or maybe a loving kindness meditation. So,
okay. And so I'm just thinking about, I guess, adapting a new process and engaging in daily rituals. So in order to do that, there's definitely some discipline going on. So in relation to that, do you have to be mindful about maybe, because I guess when we transform ourselves and when we evolve, sometimes we might have family and friends that are used to us act in a previous way where maybe we're always available to do certain things or something of that nature. Have you had to be more maybe disciplined about maybe not doing everything that maybe you would have done before, maybe things that other people would have expected you to do, because that was before you've had this, I guess you've engaged in a transformation?
Yeah. And so I may be on a bit more of a diet in terms of information. So I'm on a low information, low news diet. and I have less time maybe talking with people in general, but just more intentional about how I may be letting another person talk for extended periods of time on the phone. I might maybe keep it to 20 or 30 minutes, and then it's not necessarily useful for me to just be on the phone for inordinate amounts of time. And I actually made a list at one point, I think it's in the book, of my enemies. And so what I named as my enemies are sugar, stress, sloth, spinning in circles. And my saviors on the other side of that coin would be sleep, slowing down.
Yeah, I love those.
Stillness, stretching, strength, source, smoothies, support, significance, so I like to say that this slow time, these things that keep me on my inner axis.
I love that. I'm just writing down enemies
and saviors.
Saviors.
Yeah.
I'll have to put my own list together after this. And just getting on to I guess maybe we use the phone as an example. I would imagine that when you actually do have a phone call with somebody, that if you've got 20 minutes of real quality where you're engaged and you're able to kind of cover what you need to cover, that's quality. Because sometimes we might talk to somebody for an hour and 40 minutes of it is just kind of, I don't know, covering the same thing, or it's just a habit of talking where it doesn't do anybody any favors. But when you know that you've got somebody like Lisa on the phone for 20 minutes, you know that you're going to embrace that and it's going to be an amazing 20 minutes.
Yeah, I tend to surround myself with people that enjoy talking about things that matter. And I like to say the meaning of life is to give life meaning. And so I'm just really, I like to have conversations that feed me. There's conversations that feed my spirit, and there's other ones that make me weary. And so the ones that make me weary are short. I don't not talk to those people. They're just shorter conversations.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to do is to ask you about, you mentioned having a coach, but I'm really super keen to talk about the book. So your transformation, the journey that you've been on, I know you mentioned that you've had a coach. So for people that are listening to this and thinking that they would like to explore this, so the role of a coach, is that pretty critical?
It is, and it's a neutral person, someone that doesn't have a dog in the fight, that can be that can tell you the information you need to hear, who functions as an accountability partner. So we can talk next week and find out how things went, and did you keep your promises, that kind of thing. The common questions that people who come to me might be, I want to move beyond tension with my partner, or if they don't have a partner, they'll say, how do I prepare myself to meet someone new and have less likelihood of repeating the same stuff that I've had before? How can I improve my self-care as a busy person? How can we return to intimacy after a long sex drought? That I hear that from couples a lot. Those kind of things.
Okay. So when you're working with a client and they approach you, and I guess when they get to that point where they start working with you, they're at a point of where there's some acknowledgement that they've been able to look at. Do they really need to be at a place of, I guess, honesty with themselves so they can actually move forward?
Indeed. And that's why with couples, I like to talk with each person separately before then we come together for a group conversation. And there's certain key things that most people could benefit from in a partnership or relationship, is like, for instance, especially when you're emotionally sunburned, I like to call it, is to slow down and to learn, instead of being reactive, be curious. And as we mentioned before, speaking to the impact on you, making complaints into requests, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like that. Be curious, not reactive, because I think very often we can be reactive to a situation, and sometimes even with me, when I'm having conversations with particularly family or loved ones, you think, well, because I think you can talk at a level with family and friends that you wouldn't do with particularly family, that you wouldn't do with anybody else, just because you know each other so well. And sometimes you think, well, actually, I didn't need to respond to that. I didn't even need to say anything. I could have kept, because I haven't added anything of value to it. I've maybe made the situation worse. And sometimes I have those moments where I walk away and think, well, why did I know better than that? But I've commented, I shouldn't need to. So I like that of being maybe more, say, less reactive and more curious, where I could have maybe been more curious about why that was said, and maybe maybe they've had a bad day, maybe they've just got a bad text message, maybe something has happened, and that would be a better way, I think, sometimes in my own interactions.
That's right. And sometimes you can convert a poor behavior into greater trust by catching your own self and saying, oh, you know what? That's not how I wanted it to come out. Please allow me to redo, to say that better. I am, in the interest of learning and practicing being a better partner, let me redo that.
Yeah.
Say it again.
It must feel amazing when you start working with an individual or couples, and you're able to use everything that you've gained over the years from your journey, and you're improving people, your clients, who I guess that when they start working with you, they're at a place where they may be quite desperate to see a change.
It's so rewarding to see people make shifts. It's really nice.
So your book, so you've got an amazing new book out, Soul Statement. So firstly, where did the title come from, and what does that mean?
Sure. The title came from when working with my coaching clients. They were having such great benefit from, a lot of tools, but specifically giving themselves a better thought when before they would have had this critical voice in their head and they would have been listening to that. Instead, there's always something good and right and true that you could think instead. And because there's always something wrong. There just is, but there's always something right about yourself too. And so let's go to what's right. Let's re-anchor to that. And I called it a soul statement because you're going down inside to find something that is an empowered aspect of you that you could say, oh, I can act from this. I have a power place within. Could just say that. And then just remembering that I have a power place within. Well, that leads to a better thought than you would have otherwise been having, and which leads to a best statement. And my inner knowing is available to me. I have a loving heart. And so those kind of things can then redirect us, recalibrate our thinking in a better way.
No, I love that analogy, that approach, because it's almost empowering and uplifting, because it's almost getting us to, I guess my interpretation, to kind of second guess that what might be a reactive statement or engagement, to actually give the best of ourselves, as opposed to, I guess, old behaviors that we've had from day dot. But like, I would imagine for every couple, nobody wants to argue, nobody wants to give a poor impression, even if it is to your nearest and dearest. And it's I guess over a period of time that we let these behaviors that we don't benefit us, anybody, they kind of can dictate a situation, and it leads to unpleasantness for both of us. Because when we're angry, I know that, not that I'm an angry person at all, but if we've all been angry at times, but do you ever put your best foot forward when you're angry? Or if we misinterpret something? Never. And it's just, if it seems like with your book, it's almost we're giving ourselves an opportunity to kind of take a moment, be curious, and actually think.
That's right. And if we've spent some quiet time allowing our soul to kind of bubble up and inform us about who we are, then we can go, we've fed our spirit in that way, then we can draw upon that in those moments of tension. And as we said before, the way we manage tension is what's going to make or break the relationship.
And so your book, so I'm thinking about relationships and thinking about couples and so forth, but if you're somebody that's listening to this, that works in an office, that wants to improve their communication, wants to improve the relationships that they have with their colleagues, would this book support them and help them do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And because you can speak from a more informed place of and it's really about discovering your values and your value, and getting in. There's a ton of exercises, journal prompts, meditations throughout the book that help direct a person to that self-knowledge. And then the more you can speak from that, the better.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening to this that thinks, actually, Paul, you need to ask him, where can they get the book? So where's the best place for people to get the book? Well,
it's at all online book retailers and some bookstores. There's a link at my website, corerelationship.com. And so, yeah, that's how to get it.
Okay, lovely. I'll get some links. I'll put them on the show notes, so it'll be easy for people to get the book. And for people that are thinking maybe they'd like to know more about your services, how they could maybe approach working with you, or just getting more advice, what's the best way for people to proceed in that regard?
Well, at corerelationship.com, there's a couple dozen blog articles that I've written that gives a good sense for me and how I think about things. And that's really the hub for all things core relationship coaching. Okay, cool. And I've got two more questions. So the last one is, I'm imagining 2023 that if somebody's in England, you could still work with them, even if they're in England or somewhere else in the world. Yeah, absolutely. I do the Zoom calls, and I've had clients in Finland, England, Australia, Indonesia, France, Italy, all over Canada. Okay, amazing. Okay, so the last question is, so if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past, who would you invite? I would say Mark Twain, Joseph Campbell, and Thomas Jefferson. Okay, wow. That would be a phenomenal dinner. Yeah, think about what you're going to make them. Make sure they're all agreeable. But exactly. You could use some of the communication skills you've got just to make sure that everybody, if there was any minor disagreements, you could set them down and they could go on and enjoy a wonderful dinner. Indeed. Corey, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. It's been fabulous meeting you and learning from you. I've learned a lot. I love the journey that you've been on, but equally I love the fact that maybe more so that now you're supporting people all over the globe with their relationships and improving their situations. So that's amazing. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, you're asking great questions. I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of My Perfect Failure. Always looking to grow the show. So please do share this episode far and wide, particularly if you know people that need support with their relationships and would like to improve them. Then please do share this episode. And your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you do not like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.